Welcome to the Critical Mass Podcast. I am Simeon, and we are excited to start season 2. We've received great feedback from season 1 with emails and social media posts talking about the impact of the stories we told and the guests that we've interviewed. We're hoping to bring even more energy this season, delving deeper into ADOS politics and issues that affect our communities. As always, today's show is sponsored by the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, a 501c4 organization committed to reparations and a transformative Black agenda. You can find out more at adosfoundation.org. That is ADOS foundation.org. I'm super excited about today's show because as someone who lives here in North Carolina, I get to talk to a representative in North Carolina who's making some national news with this really contested race in Charlotte, North Carolina. So today's guest is Representative Carla Cunningham. Welcome, Representative Cunningham. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Simeon, for having me. I am fine.
Good. Well, we're so excited to have you. As always on the Critical Mass Podcast, we start with a bio. You have a robust bio that I'd like to read for our audience, and I'll kick it off right now. Representative Carla Cunningham has proudly represented North Carolina's 106th House District since 2012, bringing more than 30 years of healthcare experience to the General Assembly. A former hospice nurse, she is a leading advocate for health equity, mental health, and protections for women, children, and vulnerable communities, earning a reputation as a results-oriented legislator. As a senior member of the legislature, Rep. Cunningham has secured over $23 million in resources for her district and Mecklenburg County. She played a key role in launching the Eat Well Healthy Food prescription program, helping to secure $3.5 million in pandemic relief funding that sparked a now $60+ million initiative serving more than 150,000 North Carolinians. That work earned her the 2025 Healthy Foods Champion Award. Appointed by Governor Roy Cooper to the North Carolina State Health Coordinating Council, she also serves on key public health and equity advisory groups across the state. Her awards include North Carolina Nurses Association Legislator of the Year, NAMI Legislator of the Year, and the Governor's Conservation Achievement Award. Rep. Cunningham is a proud nurse, avid angler, and devoted mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother, driven by a strong commitment to improving lives throughout North Carolina. You all give a warm Critical Mass welcome to Representative Carla Cunningham. Good afternoon again. Thank you so much for being here. As I read that bio, I'm able to hear you, and I hear North Carolina, and a love for the state of North Carolina and the people of North Carolina. I get to hear your desire for quality public health. I get to hear about your love of fishing. I get to hear a little bit about your family. It sounds like you've had so much going on here in North Carolina. Now, am I correct? You're a North Carolina native?
I am born here, raised here. I was born in a small town, Waysboro, in Anson County. It's a one-stop-like town on the way to the beach to Wilmington. Yep.
Okay. And right now you reside in the Mecklenburg County area, correct?
Yes, I've been in Charlotte since about third grade. I relocated here as a young child.
Okay. Now, can you tell us a little bit about your family? When I hear proud mother, grandmother, great-grandmother, to me, that's so steeped in family. Can you tell me a little bit about your beginnings here in North Carolina from a family perspective?
So my mother and my mother married when she was 15, and she married my father, and he was in the service at the time. And so I am the fourth child out of 7. And so As I was growing up, I lived with different family members. You can imagine during that time, 15 years old, being a mother. And during that time, they did get married much younger. But her husband was in the service. And when I was born, I was the fourth child. And I lived with grandparents. I lived with great aunts and uncles. I lived a lot of different places. But it was definitely a village available to me that helped me to, become a productive adult. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I know if you go back in Black family trees, you generally find some aspect of farming. You
Yes.
find some aspect of maybe domestic worker. You find different aspects that bring us together in a lot of ways. Can you tell me about your family in relation to that?
Oh, it's amazing because when I was growing up, my grandfather was a truck driver, but we basically lived off the land. So we had a garden here and a garden there and a garden there, and we raised chickens. We also raised pigs. We had a bull. Um, we lived off the land. We had a peach tree, a pear tree, a grapevine, and an apple tree. So my grandparents were very much rooted in living off of the land. And my grandmother had also worked inside of people's houses, cleaning, as the housekeeper and helping raise other people's children. So they definitely had came out of that period of time where they were picking cotton at one time. Even my mother had picked cotton. So, that generational stuck with me, but we lived off the land, and community came together every fall when we did kill. We would kill the hog and we would kill the chickens. And, you had big old black pot out there, you had the water boiling hot, and then you put the chicken down in there, wring the neck, and, dip it in the hot water, and then pluck the feathers off. And then after we did the kill for the pig or the hog, whatever you want to call it, usually it was a hog because they really big. We would take and put clean the intestines out, what they call chitlins. You clean that out. And then my grandmother would mix the sausage, and we would hook the sausage ground onto the table, and we stuffed sausage, and we burned, the fat and put it in the lard cans. And we really didn't have an inside bathroom until I was in the 5th or the 6th grade. So, that was where I came from. That was who we were. Mm-hmm.
I love to hear it. It brings back so many memories of me going and visiting my grandfather and grandmother's farm in rural Georgia. My mother was born in 47. My father was born in 48. And they both have experiences where they were working on a farm. Even as a young child, my grandfather taught me to call his pigs. I don't know how good of a job I did, but I would try with all of my heart. And I think that that's something that that brings our ADOS communities together in so many different ways, because that experience is a shared experience across a certain set of generations for almost all of our families in some way or another. Now, so you've come a long way from wringing the chicken neck, and now from your bio, I see you still do some fishing.
Oh, absolutely. My grandmother was an avid fisher. And as we were growing up, she used to take us fishing with her all the time, every little pond, every little river. We went fishing. That was recreation. And of course, we played in the water too, but we got to watch her fish. And we ate those fish. But yeah, so that's something that I probably carried on from her, is I love to be on the water. I consider myself an angler. Matter of fact, I am the co-chair of the North Carolina Congressional Sportsman's Caucus, and I'm almost the only female that do a Wildlife Resources Committee. But they know I love the fish. Everybody knows I love the fish because I get talking about it. She don't look like she fish Oh yeah, I can go from morning to evening on the water. Yeah.
Oh, it's so peaceful. I too, I'm not great, but I try with every chance I get and have a good time doing so. Now, how do you move from your background and growing up here in North Carolina and living off of the land to running for public office and becoming a part of our state's legislature?
So, it's amazing. I never thought that this would be what I would be doing. Um, I had gone to school straight out of high school. I went to nursing school and got my licensed practical nurse diploma. And I had already had my daughter before I had graduated high school. And I decided I needed to go to school so I would be able to support us. And after I got my LPN, then I decided I would marry, and I had another child. And I want to say my first husband died when I was 25 and he was 31. And at the time, my children were 3 and 5 years old. So I definitely had to do more in the education space to make sure we would get out of poverty. Because in 1981, as an LPN, I was only making $4.76 an hour. And so I went back to school, got my associate's degree up at Gaston College. And before I finished that last 6 weeks of school, my son became ill. We were already in therapy, and he became ill. And I was begging the therapist, come and look at him, come to the school and this and that. And they had moved him to another school, and they had a behavior specialist, and they had like a one-on-one to work with him. But he had gotten very, very psychotic. And that last 6 weeks, he was hospitalized when I was getting ready to graduate. And that was the first time. He was 14 when he was hospitalized for the first time. And they initially had said he was bipolar. Well, they went back later and changed the diagnosis. He's schizoaffective, which is a type of schizophrenia, the paranoid schizophrenia. And so I finished up there, went to work, and of course I had insurance for him and myself, but the insurance at the time only covered 50% of mental health. It didn't cover 100%. So you can imagine if he was being hospitalized 2 to 3 times, I was going to be bankrupt. And so 27,000, and every time he was hospitalized, 50% was only paid. And so then later on, I went back to school again to get my bachelor's science degree in nursing. And the last paper I did research on was healthcare in America. And so I had heard President Obama speak, and I had said, he's going to be the next president. But also when he said he was going to do healthcare, I said, oh my God, he's going to do healthcare? We've been needing healthcare reform so long in the whole country. We're behind. We're the last of the 30 industrialized countries in the world to do something with healthcare reform and do it well. The ACA is not perfect, though. We wanted universal, but we could not get it. He had to negotiate it. So we took the ACA. And one of the main things inside of the ACA that was going to be removed was that pre-existing condition that insurance companies could not deny you anymore because you had a pre-existing condition. And see, my son didn't qualify for Medicaid because he wasn't an adult yet. He didn't qualify for those services until he became an adult. They fell up under me as the parent because it was based off of my income. So I was all in. I was like, this is it. I'm going to do whatever it takes. We're going to get the ACA. Whatever we can get, we got to take it, and we got to fight for it, and we got to get it, whatever it takes. So I was all in. And that was my man at the time. The passion, that burning desire is now I can do something. And that was the space I stepped into. And of course, when you do that, the universe opens up, and then all these people start coming in that's going to help you. And that's what happened. I have several colleagues, several dear friends that we started a coalition called the Charlotte Healthcare Coalition. It started with 7, and then it went to 15, and then it went to 500 and 600 people that have come together to help push the Affordable Care Act over to become law.
Mm. And I hear that's rooted in such personal experience. And now some of your passion in that space makes even more sense because of the personal experience. Healthcare obviously is a big concern across the country. What would you say as we look at your district, which is District 106 in North Carolina? What would you say some of the top concerns that you hear most from residents in that area?
So right now, one of the main things for them is affordable health care, also affordable housing, and also resources. We realized that, like I was talking about, Mecklenburg County is growing so fast. The cost of living is significantly increasing here. You need to be making at least $21 to $25 an hour to support yourself to live in Charlotte now. Most people are not making that, but my district only has about 7% poverty in it. The majority of them have graduated high school, and over half of them have their bachelor's degree. So my district is a little bit more wealth there than in some of the other districts, but they still have the same concerns. I think about 45% of them have children and the other don't. But, we still have some of the same issues. We haven't done anything about the cost of healthcare. We've done the ACA. We removed the pre-existing conditions. We removed that the insurance company could charge the woman more than the man because she's able to bear children. We removed a lot of barriers, but there's still some things there with the costs continue to go up, and up, and the less coverage you're getting. And with also when you're looking at the age, North Carolina is not a very healthy state to live in. We have a tendency to be obese. We're not active enough. And so we still have those issues with diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illnesses that impact us as we age. So we got concerns about aging in place. If you got people that are 65, yeah, you retired, but when you get up to 70 and 75, and if your health is not well, where are you going? Or what kind of living arrangement you're going to have. And so I think those are some of the things that we're starting to look at is aging in place, and what do we do to create more affordable housing in our space so that seniors are not pushed out of their homes.
Mm. And I get an opportunity to talk to ADOS chapters across the country. And for those that don't know, we have 11 chapters across the country, and we're adding more as we speak. Housing is such a big issue. Healthcare is such a big issue. Food insecurity is such a big issue. And so I'm really encouraged to hear you talk about housing, to hear you talk about healthcare in those areas in your district, because I think that that's a shared cost that most Americans have a hard time. You're one sickness away from losing it all,
Yes.
one hurt scenario from losing it all, and it really being able to impact you and your family. I can imagine your view of that from your nursing background is even stronger than most. How has that affected your legislative work? Just your insider view as a hospice nurse, as a parent, as a grandparent. How has that affected your legislative work?
So my nursing really has impacted how I see things. A lot of times I say I'm triaging. I'm looking at the immediate need of people, as well as I'm taking the pulse. I say I'm taking the pulse of the community. I operate under an open door policy. People call me about issues with substance use. They call me about issues with getting to services for mental health, because I do mostly, health and human services. I'm the current vice chair of health, but I'm also a chair of the Joint Legislative Oversight Committee on Health and Human Services, where I really look at what our departments are doing and where the resources are going, what part of the city are they going in, what part of the state they're going in. And so I think that space right there, I have a tendency to stay in that. nurses use judgment skills. They use critical thinking skills. Nothing is simple to us. And somebody said, well, Carla, we rarely see you smile. I said, because I'm thinking all the time. I said, when you're a nurse, you're always thinking of how to create or how to be innovative. You're always thinking. You never stop thinking, because once you're a nurse, you never stop being a nurse. You'll be that nurse to the day you die. And I'm still, look, I'm not practicing now, but I keep my license up. But I get a lot of calls. I get a lot of calls from different people saying, well, what do I do for this? And what do I do for that? And, you know, that's just a part of who I am. And even with my great grand, I mean, you know, I'm able to look at them and say whether they are meeting their development stages, you know, looking at all different impacts of what society and the environment that they are, you know, being formed in, and their growth. I can look at the child and say whether they on point of their growth and development. So I think, you know, that's just who I am. And I approach things like that. And most of the times I tell people, you know, I nursed, I did CCU, I did ICU, I did geriatrics, I did pediatrics. I've taken care of burn patients. I've taken care of gunshot patients. I've seen it all. I've seen the sternum out of it, and you can see the heartbeat. I've done it all. But one of the things that, you know, is important to me is when I entered the room, I never looked at anybody and said, what's your party affiliation? Or where did you come from? Most of the time I got the history, but I'm entering that room to provide care and just to help and, you know, help the family stabilize enough to support the patient. And I think that's hospice for me. Hospice was my love. Hospice, I never thought I could do hospice, but I lost my mother in 2010 to a glioblastoma. And then later I lost my husband that same year. And I both used hospice for them and kept them at home as long as possible. And I got an appreciation for what they did. And then I went into hospice. I didn't know I was going to be able to do it, but I was so inspired by what care they had given my loved ones that I was able to do it, you know, for somebody else and work in hospice. And I truly fell in love with hospice.
That's such a that's beautiful. I don't know many people as they get older that they don't have a relative or someone close to them who's had to be assisted in hospice care. I think of my grandmother before she passed, my wife's grandmother before she passed as well, where it was hospice care and loving and caring people, helping provide health care to our elders and people who were reaching the end of the road for their life. So I love that. So you've been in office. You've won re-election several times. You've been in office, is it 12 years now?
14.
14 years.
14 years.
That, you know, you said something earlier about when you go into a situation, you're not asking about party affiliation. You're trying to triage. You're trying to find how you can help. Has that approach helped you with legislative achievements? Your willingness to work with other people to help ultimately your people and your constituents?
It's been an amazing journey. When I first got there, I tell people I was a nightmare on M Street because you really think you're going to change the world, but if you can get one little thing changed, that is the world, right? But when I first went, I did a piece of legislation on suicide prevention. My family has had, my son has had suicidal ideation. And I did a piece of legislation on suicide prevention. And I went to 2 veterans, and both of them were Republicans. So it was 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And I didn't think they were going to do it. But they did, and they were veterans. And so they understood the need for me to do more, you know, legislation on suicide prevention, on education. And it started there. I never worked, you know, like in isolation. And one thing I always say, don't keep talking to the same people. you need to talk to different people so you can get their perspective on things. And sometimes their ideology don't match up. And even though it's 120 of us in the House chamber, we all come from a different county. Most of us, most of the smaller counties, they're all different. We have maybe 12, 14, whatever legislators come out of Mecklenburg County and Wake County and Fayetteville and Durham and places like that. But mostly everybody else come out of the rural counties. And so I come from a rural county. So I know what the plight is of Anson County because that's where I came from. I left there, but I never forgot where I came from. And so when I'm interacting, I make sure I try to find the commonality. Most of the time, people say, I know who got a disability child. I know who's got cancer in the family. I know this about the other legislators. They may not know it about me, but pretty much I'm doing my research and finding out what's going on in their family that is personal, up close and personal, because generally people's perspective on things don't change unless it's up close and it's personal. And so as a nurse, I'm an observer. So I'm able to pick up on things and then interact with individuals that come from a different space than I am. I meet people where they are. And that's what I've been doing. All my nursing career is meeting people where they are. And then I adapt to what their needs are. And so those relationships, I work now. I serve on 26 committees now. But I work. When I first got there, I kept my head down and I worked and I read and I do my research. And I've been told a lot of times by people, you might be the only one reading. But, they say, well, I don't know if anybody else read it, but yeah, I'm going to read it. And I'm going to check out the sources of where the information come from, because we're trained to do that as nurses, because we understand life and death situations. And so, I know I'm dealing with people's lives. So I take the same approach as doing the research and trying to meet people where they are. So I think that, that actually transitioned me and caused me to shift by using my nursing judgment and my critical thinking skills to mend some relationships and build some relationships on the other side of the aisle as well, and understanding that who has power in that building, in that chamber. I say you must be able to recognize power, but you also must learn how to adapt in the space, even if it's difficult. And I've been doing that all my life, because when I first started nursing, I might have had 2 or 3 Black nurses on the floor and the rest didn't look like me. And so I've had those challenges, but I also understand how to survive in that space.
In relation to your tenure here in the North Carolina legislature, what are some policy achievements you're the most proud of?
Simeon, I haven't done so much. I didn't even realize how much I had done. I am proud of Medicaid expansion. Even though I wasn't in power with the majority, I never left the table. I stayed and I fought. And I remember one day I was in the committee meeting. I was in health, and the speaker had called everybody over. We're going to have this meeting, right? And he comes in and then he started talking about another study committee. I said, excuse me, I'm not down with another study. We don't need a study on Medicaid expansion. And he just stopped. And he didn't talk to nobody else. He just talked to me. And everybody's watching him because he's like, he knew I meant what I was saying, right? And then after that, a couple of weeks later, I was walking into the rules meeting, and there he stands. And he said, Representative Cunningham, okay, yes, sir, Mr. Speaker, we're going to do Medicaid expansion. I said, I'm ready. I said, you got your people ready? He said, yes. I said, well, I'm ready. Let's go. So they knew I was never going to leave the table on something that I wanted to happen. And I mean, it was a lot of dragging and a fighting, but they put up with me because they knew they knew I was not going to let it go. So one of the other big things that I was able to get done was to get school lunch debt wiped out. across the state of North Carolina. I actually went down to my great-grandson's school, which was close by, and they was running a $7,000 school lunch debt. And I was like, what is this? So I gave them some money that wiped out about 66 students. But when I went back to the legislature, I did research on it. And I said, get this for me, my LA, get this for me. I want this information to see what schools are running these large lunch debts. And so guess what? Anson County was one of them, the county I was born in. And then Union County was the other one. And then it was Mecklenburg County. And so after I got the information, I said, draft a bill. And then I went to the two Republicans that was in Union County and Anson County. And I said, here's what's going on in your county with school lunch debt. Will you sponsor with me on the bill? They said, yes. So they did. So then it got into the budget. But then the budget had to cross over to the Senate and they negotiate. And so every week I went over there to the appropriations chair, who was Dean R. And I said, can you fight for it? And he said, well, yeah, I think I'm gonna be able to fight for it. But I went back every week. I didn't say, well, I'm gonna go one time. I go back. I have to laugh at myself. I go back every week until I'm gonna finally say, yeah, it's gonna be in there. And so it happened. And that meant that all school lunch debt across the state of North Carolina was going to be wiped out. Now, they appropriated $6 million initially. That wiped it out because that was right after COVID. It runs $3 million every year, the entire state. And now these are not children getting free lunch. These are children paying reduced lunch or they having to pay their lunch. Now, they got $3 million in the biennial budget that's recurrent. That means that every budget cycle, that $3 million is going to be in there to wipe out school lunch debt. And children don't have to be shamed to eat, and it triggers other things when the school lunch debt. It can trigger child protective services getting involved. It can also trigger them holding your diplomas and things like that. And people weren't aware that it would trigger those types of things. So now we wiped it out. So it's no more shaming for the children, even if they don't have the money to pay for their lunch. And I know what that's like because I came from there. I ate free lunch, as I grew up. I know what it was when we had to take a lunch bag to school, Yeah. And that peanut butter, that cheap peanut butter. Yeah.
It's all but a little peanut. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a heck of an achievement. And what I hear in both of those, when I hear healthcare expansion, also when I hear school lunch, there's no way that you can do that on just one side of the aisle.
It is no way, Simeon. I tell you, I also was able to. We were getting ready to do sports wage betting in North Carolina. And I was on a call and I heard them say, well, 5 HBCUs, it was 10 institutions in all, and 5 were HBCUs. And they were saying they were going to accept $1 million. When I heard them say they were going to accept $1 million, I heard them get off their phone and started dialing numbers and said, oh, no, we're not taking no $1 million. I said, we need 10% of that money. And so anyway, I went to the leader, the lead sponsor of the bill, and I told him, I said, I need 10% to go to these 5 HBCUs. And he said, well, okay, we can do it. So then after that, I said, well, I don't want the money already supplanted in the general fund for these 5 institutions to be touched. So I need to run an amendment so y'all don't mess with that money. He said, okay. I said, okay, then I'm ready to go. So my 5 HBCUs right now are getting over $3 million directly through their athletic department that they can use. They don't have to just use it for a football field or a basketball court. They can use it for other educational things, even if it's like scholarships or people that don't have enough money to pay for their books or tuition and things like that. So that I negotiated that bill. And people are like, why? Well, the HBCUs have never been funded to the level that the other institutions have been funded at. So this was an opportunity to make sure that these institutions got funded. And I was not going to let that walk away. And so I negotiated. And then after that, it went to 20%. If it was anything left over, then 20% of what was left over would be divided between those 10 institutions. So that's helping, us. It's helping us because it's us that don't have all the money to, go to schools. I believe it's like 70% of the children on the campus of Winston-Salem State, where I graduated, don't have the financials to stay in school. And that is one of the institutions, though.
Yeah, right on.
One,
right.
Yeah.
And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that is not about whether you agree with sports betting.
Right.
That means something that's already happening or about to take place in the state.
Right.
Part of what our legislators need to be able to do is to extract some of the finances for that to at least go to our universities, our school systems. And I think a lot of times people get caught up on whether they agree with sports betting or not. But if that's something that's happening, that our universities shouldn't be left out of that. So I applaud you for making sure and not allowing our universities to accept something less than what would be equitable. And I think that's where I kind of see the toughness in you, because it would have been easy to just say, hey, all right, well, hey, you getting something. But our people deserve more than just a little something.
That's right. Yeah. And I feel that way. I think until we get in a space, and I'm very transactional. I have owned a small business before and been a business owner, and I sold it. But, I still carry that business side of me and how I think and far as what we're doing at the state government level, because it's business. And that's how, I interact with it, is if I see the opportunity to get a benefit out of it that's going to help my community or a particular space, then I try to do that. And I think more of us would be able to do that if we weren't afraid to do it.
And on that note, as I've done some research on you and on your work, I see you've directed $23 million in resources to nonprofits serving Mecklenburg County. That's 17 million to the Katie Blessing Foundation, 3 million to the Village Heartbeat Incorporated, 1 million to A Safe Place Incorporated, 200,000 to the Keith Family YMCA, 200,000 to Living Water Inc., 200,000 to Huntersville Fire Department, 200,000 to Hope Haven, 200,000 to Habitat for Humanity, 200,000 to Second Harvest Food Bank of Metrolina, 200,000 to Gracious Hands Transactional Housing for Homeless Women and Children, and an additional 200,000 to the Relatives and Lifespan Services. So what I see as I researched you was that you had the ability to get resources to the organizations and the people who needed the most in your community. And so I applaud you for taking that stance, because I think a lot of times our communities get left out of those resources. We get left out of that, or the organizational structure isn't there to take advantage of it. So I'm just so glad that you were there to do that. Now, we talked just now about crossing the aisle to kind of to get what's needed for the community. And a little bit ago, you gave a speech on the House floor. And that speech went viral. And some people loved it, and you had some people who mobilized against you for it. And so I want us to watch a small clip from that, and then I'll have you talk a little bit about what was happening at that time and what's happened since.
Global migration in the past was not projected to be as it is today. We must establish new rules to address a distinct type of migration that we are facing in our country, state, and cities. It's time to turn the conveyor belt off and adopt a global migration suitable for the times that we're in. And that is not destabilizing our communities. See, it was my ancestors who came over as slaves, built this country with a strain on their backs. They sweat pouring from their bodies in the rice fields, the cotton fields, and the tobacco farms for this country. Lived as servants and was the footstool, I said the footstool, for far too many feet to step on. So today, if you ask me to line up behind another group of people to raise awareness about their plight, I unapologetically say no.
I found those words so powerful. What was happening in that scenario that prompted that speech?
Well, before, when the first bill came back, I had received from a person, they had called me trash.
Now, what bill was this that you're referring to?
That's House Bill 318. So it's the same bill. It was when we first passed it. They had called me trash, xenophobic, that I was racist, and that. So I just let that go. I didn't pay that no attention. But then when we got ready to come back for the veto override, I had a couple of people to call, and they wanted to demand that I change my vote on the veto override because they knew it was coming, and the governor wanted me to support his veto override. Well, I don't usually change my vote based on what anybody wants. I base it on what the needs of my constituents are. I don't allow somebody to come in and just tell me to vote a certain way. But I had gotten a call from someone else, and pretty much they had threatened me. And it had happened right after the legislators were killed up there in Minnesota, when they had went and killed them. This was 14 days later. And I had gotten a call, and I had understood who was telling them to make the call. But I was disturbed by it, that they were going to intimidate me and bully me. And I was saying, no, I'm not going to allow it. I'm not going to have it. I went back and I said, who am I? I'm my ancestors. I know who I am. You're not going to take my voice from me because what you want to do. So I had already written the speech and had gone over it before I got to the chamber, but I was already being intimidated and bullied, right? From even my colleagues. And you could see that on the floor as I'm giving the speech. But I don't know, inside of me was that spirit that came. I had no idea that I was going to speak the way that I spoke. I had no idea how I was even going to present it. But because by the time I got to the floor, the spirit and the burning passion was already in me, that when I got to the floor, I was going to tell them, I'm done. I'm done with you all telling me what to do, and I'm not having it. And I'm not going to line up behind your initiative or anybody else. My people come first. My community come first to me, and I'm sorry. And that's how I made a decision. I said there's three branches of government. There's the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. And they all have a purpose. That is to find balance of power. So I am represented by my 90,000 constituents. They are who I answer to. I don't answer to the executive branch. I don't answer to the judicial branch. I answer to the legislative branch, to the people in my district and my community. And that's where I stand. And I've expressed that to all the way up to the top, that my constituents and community come first. And I still feel the same way today.
Mm. And for those watching that aren't familiar with HB 318, HB 318 basically allowed or helped enforce the fact that county and municipal law enforcement would work with federal law enforcement. And that really expands on something you see across the country, because if someone's already committed a crime and they're being held in a county jail, all this does is it allows the county jail to check their immigration status. Now, I think a lot of people look at that as helping enforce immigration or these types of things, but what is the impact to the community when this isn't happening in the jails, but instead it's happening through raids and knocking on the doors? How does that impact the community? And what was some of your thought in being in support of HB 318?
So my support of House Bill 318 was to require the local sheriff to cooperate with ICE. And that meant that once they picked them up, and most of these are felonies now, they're serious felonies, that once they picked them up, they would notify ICE from the jail once they verified if they were illegal or not. And then ICE would come and get them. Well, it take a little while for ICE to come and get them because the closest detention center was in Georgia. So that they got to come up and get them. So that was what I wanted them to do. 95% of our law enforcement at the sheriff's level were already doing it. But locally, they had pushed back on 287G. That was what the platform was that the sheriff had ran up under. Well, here I am now saying, in this day and this time, I need you to cooperate with ICE, because it's better that they come to the jail and pick them up instead of coming in the community. But they didn't want to see it that way. But we've seen what happened. If you don't cooperate and they come into the community, more people getting hurt, more people are, disorderly, and sociologists say, a crowd is always unpredictable. So it's always best that you go to the jail in a more contained space and get them instead of coming in the community, making the community nervous, as well as causing, other things to happen in the community that would not normally happen.
And I know as a Black citizen, I'm all too aware and understand the impacts when law enforcement comes into the community and it ain't something positive, when they're not trying to do something positive. And so I look at this, and it's interesting to watch kind of all of the basically brouhaha news around it. I saw an article titled "A Purity Test for Democrats in North Carolina," where you basically have the chair of the Democratic Party saying that if you went to override the veto of the Democratic governor, that they're not going to provide support for your reelection. And I love that you brought up that you are beholden to your 90-some thousand constituents, not a party line. And so I think that that's really interesting that a Black woman doesn't get the autonomy to vote her conscience or to vote what the needs of the constituents are. How has that impacted you?
Well, I didn't expect everything to happen that has happened. So the governor came out and endorsed my opponent. And then they decided that they were going to take my vote builder, which our caucus dues is $10,000 on the House side and it's $20,000 on the Senate side. So I always paid my dues. So I was supposed to have access to it. They decided they were going to take it. But when they decided they were going to take it, they were intending to hurt me, but they really are hurting my constituents by taking their voice, because they're the voters. They should be the ones that make the decision whether I'm reelected or not. But they decided to take the resources away from me. Now, in the district I'm in, I can only win as a Democrat because it's a Democrat strong district, right? But there is a shift taking place in North Carolina. And I looked at my numbers, and it's more independents in my district now than they are Democrats or Republicans. So we know the shift is taking place, but I'm issue oriented. And I think when you're looking at the resources that you need to bring back in your community to keep it stabilized, because so many things are going on at the federal level, if you can do that, you're doing something. And I'm proud of the work that I've done. And if these 90,000 people can't accept that I've done the work, then they'll get nothing. Because when the next person come along, I'm a senior. I am the longest serving Black American female serving in the North Carolina Statehouse right now. And so they want to get me out because they want to send a message. The message is not just for me. The message is for the other Black legislators too.
Absolutely.
Because they took the vote builder not just from me. They took it from two other ones. And they're Black too. So they're telling us, if you don't do what we tell you to do, then we're going to come after you and replace you. But what the people don't know is when they replace us, they're going to get nothing. Zero. That's what they're going to get. It's nothing, because they're going to be at seat 120 and I was at seat 20. So I'm at the front of the chamber because I'm a senior legislator. They operate by seniority. So if you just coming in the door, you can forget it. It's going to take you 10 years.
Right.
The look, 2 years to find the bathroom, 2 more years to learn how to write a bill. And no, I'm serious.
2 years to find the bathroom.
2 years to find the bathroom in your office. And then 2 more years to learn how to get a bill done. Then another 2 years to figure out who you need to talk to.
Right on. And now what I also found interesting is that perspective around migration. And, I've noticed America, the Democratic Party, doesn't even have the appetite to look at how it impacts Black voters, how it impacts Black citizens. And I saw a Hillary Clinton video where she talked about migration. I want to play that video because apparently it's okay for former Senator Hillary Clinton and former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton to talk about there needing to be some changes as it pertains to immigration. But you talking about it apparently is a problem. I want to play that clip.
We need to call it for what it is.
Secretary
There is
Clinton.
a legitimate reason to have a debate about things like migration. It went too far. It's been disruptive and destabilizing, and it needs to be fixed in a humane way with secure borders that don't torture and kill people.
Now, you listen to that, and you're talking about a responsible form of migration that doesn't impact communities, that doesn't drain resources from communities, that also makes us in compliant with the law. And so what do you think about it? Obviously, it's okay for some Democrat to say that. Why do you think it wasn't okay for you to say that?
I think, and it goes deeper than that, because the governor said that he endorsed my opponent because of the speech. Well, that's not true. They endorsed my opponent because I told them, and when I had a conversation, I said, my community not taking any more bounce checks. I said, my constituents come first. And they're looking at me and they're saying, we're done with her because she's not going to do what we're telling her to do. And that's basically it. It's not really even about the immigration speech. It's about that I'm a Black woman and I'm looking at them, telling them, I'm not doing what you're telling me to do, that I'm going to take care of my community and you all can do whatever. But see, the only people that's getting left out in this game is us.
It's us. Yep.
Us. But we can't, a whole lot of folk can't see it. But it's some, what I call them, white gloves. People got white gloves so they don't leave their fingerprints on the jury. We got people just like that with them white gloves on, and they operate the game. And you can't see really who it is.
Yes.
But that's what it is. And see, now you see how my colleagues were sitting in there, the ones that look like me. They're too scared to say a word. And I said, I'm free. Aren't I supposed to be free?
That's right.
I'm free. This is America. I am American. And I'm looking at them. Is this not your America? With all the good and the bad. This is it for us.
That's right.
We either can make it or it's going to make us. So I took the side that, I'm going to deal with you and I'm going to deal with you and I'm going to get some resources and I'm bringing them home to my people. And I don't care. So
that's right.
If whatever God has for my journey, it's my journey. But I don't have to act like I'm not free and that I don't have my own voice and I can't think for myself. I could think for me. God gave me that. And if it was only, people only knew what they could do if they would let God remove the fear, what they could do for their people. No, they don't all look like me. You know what I'm saying? They don't sound like me, but I'm going to go deal with them and they're going to deal with me and I'm not leaving with nothing. But see,
that's right.
It's an art. It is an art, but you have to, I'm transactional. In everything, I am transactional.
And I think a lot of times, and we see this with the Democratic Party, we see this with the Republican Party, even we see this with the progressives, we see this with conservatives, we even see it with the politicians who claim that they're independent, that every other group gets to be transactional. But we're supposed to just wait in line. I think about how every other group, it's, hey, this is what we need. But if you say what our community needs, all of a sudden they want to remove funding. All of a sudden they want to remove access to vote build. All of a sudden they want to remove all of these things or make it more difficult for you. What do you say to our legislative Black caucus here in North Carolina? Because I've seen some stand up, but I've also seen some stay quiet. What do you say to them in a moment like this?
I have to step back because my husband told me something one time. And he told me, he said, Carla, you have high expectations. He said, you can't, he said, you have them even on yourself. He said, you can't place them on other people. They'll never meet them. And I say, now, there are no perfect people. We keep looking for perfect people, but there are no perfect people. I'm going to make a mistake. They're going to make a mistake. We all going to make mistakes. But doggone it, try. If you elected, you shouldn't just sit in your seat. You went there to do service for your community. And if you're not going to do service, then you ought to give a seat to somebody else, because people are hurting. People are struggling in our communities. They need help, and they need somebody that can fight for them. And I'm a fighter. Don't get me to talk about fighting now. I'm a fighter, but I had to fight, so I know what it is to fight. I'm a survivor. I am a survivor, but I'm not just surviving for myself. I'm surviving for the next generation. So I help them get where they need to be, so they can know, they can think, and they have a voice, and that they're free. We talk about freedom of speech, but you want to take mine. No, you can't take it. It don't belong to you. But what those legislators are going to have to figure out is what they came to do. What they came to do, because I know what I came to do, but they need to figure out what they came to do, because it is hard. And I feel sorry for a whole lot of them that didn't stand up when I stood on that floor. Some of them said negative things about me. I didn't say anything. And some of them wasn't Black Americans. And some of them were. But the machine is telling their brain what to think. So it's what I call Stockholm Syndrome.
Absolutely. I that's so powerful. The ADOS Advocacy Foundation, we have members spread out across the state. And I was talking to a member who's located in Charlotte, and they were talking about you at a community forum last week. And before I even get to last week, they were also talking about you at a virtual forum a few weeks ago. And some of the things that I've gotten to witness and that have been communicated to me are horrible. Where we saw you were at a virtual forum and you were there, you spoke. They asked you to say you were present. You said you were present. Everybody heard you. The people I know that were on the call heard you. People from your campaign heard you, but they acted like they didn't even hear you and didn't let you speak.
That's
But
right.
let your opponent speak. And that kind of, to me, talks to that machine you're referring to. And they're really trying to steamroll the constituents, the residents, the citizens in 106, because you're there to represent them. Another story that got told to me, and I actually saw some video of it. We had ADOS Advocacy Foundation volunteer. We had several volunteers who showed up at the last forum that you had. I believe it was a week ago, or a little less than a week ago. And your opponent resulted to name calling. There was also a point where, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was asked, does he see a need to work across the aisle or work with other people? And he said he didn't see a need. And you gave a response that was around, it doesn't matter who you have to work with to get what's needed for your community. And I think that that's the difference. But I also saw something else that made me really uncomfortable, where after it was over, he was trying to force you into a conversation to the point where someone had to actually stand there in front of him. So what is it like dealing with this type of intimidation and this type of force from ultimately the Democratic Party when you've been working for 14 years to serve the constituents of House District 106?
I definitely have to think that something is wrong. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, what's going on? Why is it that we as Black Americans, all of a sudden, we are last in line, to get any resources. We're last in line to have our voices heard, but we've made the most sacrifice. And then what the party did is they used, just like Malcolm X, just like Martin Luther King, they used the same people that look like me to come after me. So that's a mind game. And it's sad that this day in time, after all that our ancestors have been through, that they are still using us to hurt us. And that's what that is. I mean, at that forum, when I said I had brought $23 million back home, he said, how much did you leave on the table and how many pieces of silver did you get? So that was calling me Judas. So that's why when I went out and he was trying to get close to me, because he done revealed who he was.
That's right.
Just walked off and didn't say anything. But now he want to accost me to have a conversation. No, you done said what you said. I don't have to accept your apology. You're not even really worthy to come to my presence and have a conversation. Okay.
That's right.
Because when people show you who they are, that's who they are. But also you have to teach people how to treat you. And see, I've been teaching the other side how to treat me. But this side over here, they haven't learned yet.
I know that's right.
They haven't learned yet. But the other side done learn. When I want something, I'm coming to get it. But that side over there ain't figured out, I want something, I need to give it to her. They ain't figured that part out yet.
I know that's right. For those that are listening, and we appreciate everyone being here, make sure you're going to Carla Cunningham, nchouse.com to check on her policies, leave a donation. We have to support people who support us, people who believe in the things that are going to help our community. And so make sure, I think it's coming across the bottom of the screen right now. Make sure you're going Carla Cunningham, nchouse.com. I appreciate you and so many people that I've talked to appreciate you for standing strong in this moment. Because that's what's happening. And I don't know if people understand, but there may come a time where our needs don't necessarily fit in the singular box of an individual party, because our needs may transcend what one party says that we deserve or what one party is willing to provide. And I appreciate you being willing to walk across the aisle and get benefits or resources for your community, because as a voter, I don't care about the party. I care about the legacy. I care about my children. I care about healthcare costs. I care about housing. I care about those types of things that are going to bring my family forward, bring the families of my peers and my colleagues and my friends and all of those people forward, not whether you're wearing blue or whether you're wearing green. And I find it so unfortunate that the chair of the Democratic Party here in North Carolina, the governor of North Carolina, have put their finger on the scale and tried to tip it out of range for the constituents in House District 106. I've heard so much today about you and what you prioritize. What safeguards do you think should exist to ensure elected officials like yourself can serve without political retaliation?
Well, there almost are none that really exist right now. But I think for me, before I went to the legislature, I knew who I was and I didn't forget where I came from. And I think you have to be well grounded when you show up to take those seats. And you can't walk in fear. Um, after I did the speech, I got threats. Um, and I was a little nervous after I had got the threats. But no one should have to go through that just because they're serving. And it shouldn't matter. If you're serving your constituents, no one should be threatening you. It's just a job that you're doing. And it's not like I'm making a whole lot of money. I'm really working at a charity level because I only make $13,000 in salary from the state. So really, I'm giving away, the service that I have, that I was blessed to have that within me to give. But Simeon, I don't know. I think I want to say this before we get off. Y'all don't know the letters after I immediately did the speech and got back home. I got letters from people from all over the country, from people supporting what I said. I only it got to be about 400 of them. And I read every one of them. And then I got about 100 and something that didn't like what I said. But I appreciate the people sending letters so I could get a feel of what they was really feeling and expressing. But you all don't know. Right now, if you all had not done what you all did, I couldn't be sitting where I am right now because the money wasn't pouring in because they done turned the money off. They turned the money off, the machine turned the money off from coming. But you all stepped up. You sent me some encouraging words. And I'm going to tell you, it's been days that I've had to say, why am I still doing this? But I'm going to tell y'all something. And I told my team this. I said, no matter what happens, when this race is over, I walk away with my integrity. I said, I don't know what nobody else's God is, but my God is still on the throne. So I'm going to stand where I'm standing. I'm going to be who I am, and I'm not going to be quiet. And I'm just not. And they can do whatever they want to do. I am not walking in fear. I am free.
I know that's right. Okay, we get to the point of the show now where we're going to do a lightning round. I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and I'd love just some really quick answers here. One, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee or tea? Okay, coffee. I'm with that. I got a little bit of tea now, but I may have coffee after this. What's more important, party unity or voter trust?
Voter trust.
What's one thing voters deserve that they're not getting right now?
Authenticity.
Finish this sentence. North Carolina families need
healthcare.
And for you, why are you fighting this battle?
I think God gave it to me.
Representative Cunningham, thank you so much for taking some time to talk to us. Also, thank you for your courage. Thank you for standing in the shoes of our ancestors, standing strong against some pressure that we can see and even more pressure that no one else sees but you. And so we appreciate you at the ADOS Advocacy Foundation. I've gotten emails and messages from all around the country of people saying, hey, you all need to make sure you're uplifting Representative Carla Cunningham. And that's what we want to do. For those of you who who aren't familiar, the ADOS Advocacy Foundation is a 501c4 organization that supports reparations and a transformative Black agenda. You can find out more at adosfoundation.org. Make sure you are tapping in. You can also join the ADOS Advocacy Foundation at joinados.com and become a member. We have chapters across the country and it's growing by the day. As a member of the North Carolina chapter and a volunteer with the ADOS Advocacy Foundation, we thank you and we appreciate you. You all give a warm round of applause out there at your house or on your phone to Representative Carla Cunningham.
Thank you, Simeon.